The Liberty Flames will begin the season on Saturday at Williams Stadium. They will take on Campbell, talking to sideline reporter, all-around good guy, and I don't know what else I could title him, Mr. Nick Pierce. Optimism, how high is it for this version of the Flames?
I think it's an all-time high. I mean, when you look at what this team did a year ago, going to the Fiesta Bowl and winning the first 13 games of the year, a conference championship, and then you've got a lot of the key pieces back, at least at the skill spot, with Caden Salter at quarterback, setting program records last year, Quentin Cooley at running back, back for his senior year, and 1,400 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns last year there. You've got Von Blue back at running back a year older. He's now a sophomore after dealing with some injuries last year. And then, you look at the defensive side of the ball and you feel like that you've got more depth really this year than a year ago. And a defense that was very opportunistic last year, led the country in interceptions. Don't know if you'll see that kind of productivity this year, but they're hoping to be able to still maintain that level of success as far as forcing turnovers. And then, with the depth on the defensive line, hoping to maybe get after the quarterback a little bit more this year. That was an area that they kind of struggled in last year. So I think when you start to look at all those things, you got the preseason player of the year on offense, preseason player of the year on defense, and then, just the success of last year. I think that, optimism's at a really probably an all-time high.
You're a fan of, obviously, other teams in your professional life and everything, too. Is the optimism realistic, or is it too high? And I get a lot of people are normally going to be too high, by the way. So I get a lot of people.
Depends on whose optimism you're looking at. If you're looking at it from the fan base and the people outside, maybe a little too high. I don't look. And I only say that because it's really hard to replicate an undefeated. First of all, it's hard to go undefeated.
Sure.
Let's just be real. And to think that you're just going to go out there and replicate that, I don't think that's realistic. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't think it's realistic to sit here and expect this team to go out and do exactly what it did last year, which, by the way, is what it's going to take in all reality for this team to get a group of 5 automatic bid to the college football playoff with the expanded field this year, going to 12 teams. Highest rated group of 5 team is guaranteed to have a spot. I think that also plays into the optimism and just the excitement of this year for the fan base, as it should. But Liberty, to get that spot, in all likelihood, is going to have to run the table again. It's not likely to happen, but I wouldn't say that the chances are zero. I think that this is a team that, like I said, has a lot of reason to be optimistic. They've got a lot of key pieces back from a year ago. I don't think the conference outside of Liberty got significantly better. I think some teams will be improved, but Liberty's going to be favored in all of those games. Now, the non-conference schedule with East Carolina, who should be much improved from last year, although you're coming off a 2-win season, you certainly hope that they're improved. And then App State on the road, that could be a potential college football playoff elimination game in terms of the group of 5 with Liberty and App State on September the 28th, because both of those teams have aspirations of winning their league and potentially getting ranked and having a shot at that G5 bid. So I think the non-conference strength of schedule is probably a little bit tougher this year. The overall strength of schedule doesn't reflect it, at least when you look at the preseason rankings and the analytics. But this will be a more challenging year for the Flames, seeing a lot of these teams twice and trying to keep that winning streak up.
2 biggest losses for the Flames from a personnel standpoint.
I think C.J. Daniels at wide receiver, without question, a guy who's a 1,000-yard receiver, 10 touchdowns last year, hit the transfer portal, got a great opportunity at LSU. That speaks to his talent. From the defensive side, from the defensive side, I would say probably either Kobe Singleton or Kendi Charles. Kendi Charles at the tackle spot on the defensive line put in a lot of work last year, but Kobe Singleton at corner made some big plays for the Flames, particularly in that game down the stretch against Sam Houston, and was part of the reason that they were able to lead the country in interceptions. So I think those are 2 that really come to mind, at least off the top of my head.
What would worry you about Campbell if you were on that Liberty coaching staff?
I think the biggest thing is just with Campbell having a new coaching staff now, with Braxton Harris returning to Campbell. He was an assistant on Mike Menner's staff. Coach Menner resigned after last season. Harris was the head coach at Houston Christian last season, so he's in another first-year run here at Campbell. You aren't exactly sure what they're going to look like. How much will they mirror what Campbell was doing while Mike Menner and Coach Harris were there? How much will they be different? They've got a new quarterback in Chad Masco, who's been the backup there. So some new personnel, a little bit of a new look. It's probably going to be a little bit of a game of adjustments. And how quickly can the Flames adjust to whatever they're seeing from Campbell? And then you have to look out for, potentially trick plays and different things. Campbell's going to come in here and shoot their shot. But the reality is they're outmanned. They don't have the depth and the talent at certain spots, I think, to keep up with Liberty long term. So I think the Flames will be fine. But, that first quarter or two, could be a little bit interesting just to see how the Flames adjust to whatever they're seeing.
Individually, do you feel like there is a most pressure on someone this year for Liberty not named Caden Salter?
No, that's a good question.
I'll try.
I'm sure there's a lot of guys that would like to think that this is a potential draft year for them, or they're trying to get to the next level. So I think that there's some inherent pressure that comes with that. But one thing I'll say about this team is that they do a pretty good job of keeping the main thing the main thing. And a lot of these guys, all through the course of last year, all I heard was playing for one another. So the pressure isn't so much individually to perform as it is I've got to perform for the guy next to me. And when you've got a locker room that genuinely buys into that and can really make that the main thing like the team did last year, receivers, if they're asked to block for an entire game and maybe they're not going to get a lot of balls thrown their way this week, but next week is their week. And just getting them to buy in that they're going to have their moment to shine, even though it may not be in this particular game. I think when you can really genuinely get that attitude with the team, it's special. And the team had that last year. We'll see if they've got it again this year. But like I said, a lot of the same faces back, despite the fact they've got 40-plus newcomers with a big roster in the transfer portal. That's just the day we live in. But so I would say I don't really know that I don't know that it's a great answer to your question either, but no one's really coming to mind for me that is, should be placing a whole lot of pressure on themselves.